I was working on another video and putting something together for it, and then I started thinking, wow, this is way more fun. So I want to show you something today that for me is a lot of fun. Parallel compression is, I think, one of the most overrated audio production techniques out there. It is not a necessity for your mix. Not everybody uses it. In fact, I can think of a couple of pretty big mix engineers who don't use it. One of them is Serban, doesn't use parallel compression unless the producer used it. He just leaves it in the project. And then Tom Lord-Alge, they don't use parallel compression. And I mean, hey, they're millions of records did pretty good without it. So it's not as important as a lot of people think it is. I do still use it though. I mean, there's times for it. And I was working on this mix here and well, I'll play a little bit for you. So I was working on this mix and I was just thinking the drums are just not doing what I want them to do. They're not like standing up in the mix in this kind of chorus section the way I want the drums to stand up. And I thought, oh, what's parallel compression doing? Because this was an older template I had that I had tried to pull up to just do something fast, and it turned out to not be quite as fast, but this I can do relatively quickly. In this mix, I just want the drums to kind of speak a little better, and I'm going to use parallel compression to do that. What I want to show you is basically how do I go about dialing in parallel compression to start with, because I think there are a lot of different ways that you can set up a compressor to do parallel compression and to have it do different things, based on how you set attack times and release times. And you can really start overthinking this kind of stuff at first. And I think when I was first trying to use parallel compression, I don't know, 20 years ago, 25 years ago, maybe, I was overthinking it. And I want to show you just a simple way to really think about this and to just get it to kind of work. So let me solo up the drums. So here's what we got. So those are all right. I have the drums, well, at least the kick and the snare, I have that routed to two groups. So we've got a kit bass group here, and then there is our kit Spank, appropriately named because that's what we're going to do today. I am going to just focus on that. I think the only things I have routed into this is kick and snare and toms. Let me just play a little bit of it to make sure. Yeah, that sounds like that hi-hat is just bleed into the snare, and that's fine. So the compressor I'm going to use for this today is this Mixland rubber band compressor, and this is the V2, and I really like this thing for this kind of application. It is just kind of made for it. First thing I want to do, I want to set the EQ to post, because one of the things a lot of people don't know and sometimes don't do is when it comes to parallel compression on the drums, the traditional way of doing it that is kind of an approach that came out of New York is we're going to EQ after the compressor. So I'm going to set that EQ to post to get started. So let's take the bypass off, and I have all of these controls mapped to my control surface. So I'm just going to turn knobs. And the way I sort of approach this is I just want to get a kind of compressed sound that I like. It's probably going to be a lot more. In fact, I know it's going to be a lot more than I would probably want in the mix. But in general, first part of this is I'm just going to dial it in to where I like it. Now, the controls on this compressor, they're not all traditional controls. If you're wondering, this snap right here, this is basically the threshold. Tension is basically the ratio. Then we've got attack and release. So I like using this though because, there's a visual thing, which I'll use a little bit, but mostly it just feels like to me it forces you to listen, which is what we want to do. So I'm going to play this back a little bit and really kind of dial this in. I like the tension all the way over here. Now, I'm focusing on this. I'm mainly listening to the snare drum. I mean, there is a kick drum in there, but I'm mainly listening to the snare as I dial this in. So I'm going to play with the attack and release now. So maybe something like that. One of the things I like about this compressor is you can really hear what the attack and the release kind of do to things, especially when you set it at extreme settings. And the auto makeup gain on this particular compressor, it works really good so that you can really just focus on what does it sound like. Mixland, they did not sponsor this. They did not provide this compressor for me. This is a compressor that I bought. I just like it. So I'm going to play a little bit of this with and without it. Big difference. Let me check something here. I might want a little more high EQ. What does this crunch do? Let's see. So I kind of like this. I think it sounds cool. I mean, it is doing a bunch of stuff to it. Probably something I wouldn't want to be the main drum sound. I mean, that's not really why I dialed it in the first place. But I like this. I mean, no, I like that. That sounds cool to me. But I'm going to run this in parallel, and this is going to be the parallel side. So I'm going to turn this all the way down. So that group right here, turn it all the way down. In fact, now you can kind of see that a little bit more. I'm going to unmute the full drums, and I'm going to turn the solo off so that the whole mix is going. And now I'm just going to feather this spanked bus in until I like the way the drums are working. Now I'm going to play a little bit, and I'm going to take the Spank in and out. We'll start with it in. So in the mix, it makes a pretty big deal. Let's just solo the drums a minute, and I'm going to toggle the Spank in and out again, and we'll start with it in. When I take my Spank bus out with the drums soloed, there is a difference to me for sure, and it's pretty noticeable. But to me, the difference isn't as noticeable as when I take it out of the context of the mix. To me, where this really works and really makes a difference is in the full context of the mix. So I'm not necessarily trying to get my entire drum sound using this parallel compressed bus. What I'm trying to do is I'm trying to use this to augment the drums as they actually are in the mix, and to get them to just kind of read better and stand up a little better. And I think that's what this is doing. So that's parallel compression on drums, just kind of how I dial it in. Put a compressor on there and dial it to where you like it, and then mix it in. Doesn't have to be real complicated. You don't have to use this Mixland rubber band compressor. In fact, what's your favorite compressor for drums and for parallel compressing drums? I am always looking for new stuff to play with. Please leave a comment below about that. And if you've got questions about drums or parallel compression or just something else, please let me know. Always looking for ideas for videos, but thanks for watching. I'll talk to you soon.